Good morning. Welcome to the 17th Annual Berks County Heroes Breakfast. I'm Karen Millette with WFMZ TV. We're excited to be able to share with you the stories of ordinary folks who are doing extraordinary things. It's happening all around us. This year has been a challenge. You can see the toll it's taken. There's been so much loss and heartbreak, but we are resilient. We have moved mountains this year, and we've done it together. Every hero I spoke with told me about the people who were working alongside of them, how they were never alone. I'm so glad that we are together this morning, even in this virtual format. I hope our heroes inspire you the way that they have inspired me. So grab a cup of coffee and join us as we celebrate this year's Berks County Heroes. As always, we are proud to partner with the Pennsylvania Rivers chapter of the American Red Cross to honor them. Please welcome the chapter's Executive Director, Peter Brown.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Peter Brown, Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Rivers chapter of the American Red Cross. Welcome to our 17th Annual Berks County Heroes Breakfast. This is one of my favorite days of the year because we're going to honor people in the community, not only for heroic acts in saving lives, but also in this very unusual year, people who have gone out of their way during the COVID pandemic to help others in their community. Some of them are medical professionals, some of them are teachers. You're going to see and hear a lot of wonderful stories today. So I get to kick this off by saying thank you. And I want to start by thanking our incredible Heroes Breakfast Committee. Some of them are board members, some of them are just members of the community who have helped for months to prepare for this event. And of course, an event like this wouldn't be possible and wouldn't help us fulfill our mission if not for the generous sponsors. I'll warn you that there are a lot of them, but they are incredibly important to our ability to deliver our mission. Our platinum sponsors are UGI and WFMZ 69. Our heroes sponsors are Stratix, UPMC, and East Penn Manufacturing Company. Our presenting sponsors are Connors Investor Services, Customers Bank, First Energy, and Penske. And we have a lot of friend sponsors. New sponsor this year, D&B Construction, County of Berks Veterans Affairs, Custom Milling and Consulting, Discovery Federal Credit Union, Lisa Witz Heller, Maggs and Associates, Mosteller and Associates, the Penn State Health Network, RKL, Security First, Tompkins Insurance, and Tompkins Vist. Our contributing sponsors this year are S&T Bank and Ben and Tony Simone. So we want to thank these generous sponsors. All of the money raised at this event will go to service the Red Cross mission here in Berks County. And again, sit back and enjoy the show and look forward to meeting some amazing people. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Our first hero is just a teenager, showing us all that anyone can make a difference. You just have to get outside your comfort zone. 17-year-old Danny Smith starts most mornings online. Instead of the bus and being here at Wilson High School, he turns on the computer at home in Sinking Spring. Virtual learning hasn't been easy, but it did afford him some time to start thinking about how he could help. All around him, folks were dealing with the pandemic, doctors, nurses, working long hours. Danny thought they might be hungry.
We found GoFundMe and kind of tested it out, had a page set up.
People started donating, and along with the GoFundMe page came Go Fish. Owner Heather Clark had just laid off most her staff, but when she saw the money Danny raised, she donated her own and started cooking.
Our chef came together with Danny and they came up with a great menu, and Danny offered to deliver it for us and find the people that needed it the most and help us out. So it was really cool that he stepped up to the plate like that, and he's a good kid.
Twice a week for a month, with the money they raised and Heather's generous donation, Go Fish made the meals, and Danny and his dad delivered them to more than 350 frontline workers. A warm meal when there wasn't much else for comfort.
They seemed very grateful. I wish I could have given him more food. It felt like it wasn't that much at first, but I guess it was enough for the time being.
We're just really grateful that so many people came and wanted to help us. That was the best part. Once you start something, it seems like other people just kind of jump in and want to help too.
One kind act spurs another, and before you know it, you've fed hundreds of hungry workers when they needed it the most. Danny said he learned so much from this experience, including how to make a connection to folks he didn't know. We wish Danny the very best. He will be a senior next year. Our next hero is a former coworker of mine who just happened to be at the right place at the right time and did the right thing.
Hey, take your video.
This is how the story ended. A young man in handcuffs sitting in the back of a police car. To understand how he ended up here, you have to go back a few hours. It was just after midnight on June 2nd. Fred Tamari was out walking when he heard someone shouting outside Sheetz.
There was a car that was pulled over. I could hear an officer yelling into the car. I knew something was going on.
Police say 22-year-old Jacob Aharonian was drunk and about to drive away when a Carnarvon Township police officer stopped him.
The officer was trying to get the guy out of the car. Somehow the kid burst the door open and then they got up and started struggling outside.
Police say Jacob slammed the car door on the officer's hand and was punching and kicking him. The officer grabbed his taser. The report says Jacob ripped out one of the probes and kept swinging. Fred, who was watching it all unfold, ran inside the store and told the clerk to call 911. When he came back outside, they were still fighting, and then the officer was knocked unconscious.
And then the kid stood up, and I was like, I didn't know what to do, so I got from behind him and put him in a full Nelson, and held him while backup arrived, probably around 4 or 5 minutes. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I did not want to fight him. So I was just trying to calm him down. I was just trying to say, it's okay, everything's going to be fine, just calm down.
It's one of those things, I mean, I've it's that fight or flight instinct, and Fred jumped in, and saved the day.
When backup arrived, Fred let go, and officers took Jacob into custody. He was charged with assaulting an officer, DUI, and public intoxication.
Some of them stopped by my house and thanked me, and that was really humbling. And I said, you guys are the real heroes because you choose to do this every day. I really don't feel like I had a choice.
But he did, and he made one that risked his own life to save another. Thank you, Fred, for being the kind of person who helps another. Our next hero reached out far and wide to help another. You'll see what I mean. Sometimes we just need someone to listen, to let us know we're not alone, even if that someone is just online. Chief Stephen Stinsky remembers logging in to the Fleetwood Police Facebook page late one night in August.
Getting ready to go to bed that night on the 13th around 11 o'clock at night, I saw that just after 3, someone had sent a message to the police department via Facebook Messenger.
The message was unsettling. A teenage boy who wanted to end his life. Chief Stinsky replied. The boy said he was at home and gave him his name. The chief called the officer on duty and asked him to check the usual databases to find out more about him. Nothing came up. No record of who the boy was. No record of him at all. More messages came in overnight, and by the next day, the chief and the boy were messaging back and forth. He was talking about living in his flat, his job as a tram driver, and the chief began to realize that the boy wasn't messaging him from here in Fleetwood, Pennsylvania, but instead from across the ocean, 3,381 miles away in this Fleetwood, in Lancashire, England.
It doesn't really matter whether I'm texting you from a command post outside your house or I'm texting you across the Atlantic Ocean.
He knew he had to keep him talking, so he did, for hours while he reached out to officers in Lancashire.
Very rarely do we get someone who's in crisis now, and we are relying on someone in another country doing crisis interventions on our behalf.
The teen was sending pictures. He sent this one of a tram station. The chief told him help was on the way. The officers in the other Fleetwood knew the place and found the boy sitting on a bench.
Relieved, yeah. It was, because you're involved in something for so long, and obviously it's very serious about what could potentially happen. So when it's all over, it's like, okay.
Someone who was in crisis, someone who was vulnerable and had nowhere else to turn, even though they're in the UK, we were able to reach out to a US police officer, and they still did the right thing.
And saved a life because he took the time to listen. Sometimes heroes have been working there all along, working tirelessly in service to others. When the pandemic hit, one woman knew she needed to help. In 1971, Teresa Adams became a registered nurse. It was a dream realized from a young age after a tragic turn of events.
My older sister was hit by a car while crossing the street to go see Popeye on television.
The accident left her sister almost completely paralyzed on one side. Teresa was too young to visit while she recovered, so she would stand outside the hospital and wave, in awe of the nurses who cared for her big sister. And so began her long nursing career. She worked in hospitals and taught at nursing schools. She was the head nurse at Wilson High and developed a certification program at Alvernia. Her own education was continuous, earning a doctorate in leadership. Even though she retired, Teresa never let her license lapse. She was working as a volunteer in 2020 when it all suddenly stopped.
Now that the virus is in Berks County, many are wondering what they need to do to be tested.
Many of her former student nurses reached out.
I kept hearing about how stressed they were and how they didn't have the correct PPE.
Teresa wrote letters to legislators asking them to keep frontline workers and their patients safe. And in those early days, she saw the harsh reality of the virus. Her good friend's husband died from COVID, and the loss left her searching for a way to help.
I knew how hard it had hit her family, and I felt terrible that I really couldn't do anything. I couldn't visit with her. I couldn't do anything for her children. I just felt so overwhelmed with that I had to do something.
So she started sewing. About 50 masks a week to start. Then that number climbed to the hundreds. So far, she's made close to 8,000.
The true heroes are all those healthcare workers who were in the throes of something that they really didn't know how to handle. The separation they had with their families. Many of them rented campers or hotel rooms, motel rooms to stay in for weeks on end, months on end. It was very stressful, I think, for them. That caused me a lot of stress because I felt guilty sitting here in my home because I felt I should be out there. But I knew at that point that I was not the one that needed to be there, that I could support them in other ways.
The more masks she made, the more requests that came in. And when the call went out for nurses to administer shots at our vaccine clinics, Teresa answered that one too. It's where you'll find her now, 3 days a week. Giving, doing, sharing what she can without a second thought. Terry says she often gets knocks on her door from neighbors at all hours seeking medical advice. I think that's the way with most nurses, always there for comfort. Thank you for the work that you do. The work hasn't stopped for the Helping Harvest Fresh Food Bank. That is where we'll find its president. Empty shelves, missing toilet paper, hand sanitizer, and wipes nowhere to be found. We were wondering when we could buy them, when they would be stocked on the shelves. But what if instead of just needing those items, you were also wondering how you were going to feed your family? Just days into the shutdown, That was the reality for some Berks Countyans who never dreamed they would need this kind of help.
You could see that these were people who did not ever expect to be in a food pantry line.
Helping Harvest Fresh Food Bank, led by President Jay Worrell in his first year on the job, was providing food that was saving lives. In 1 week in March of 2020, Helping Harvest food distribution more than doubled.
It was like somebody had thrown a light switch off. And the challenge for us at that time really was we still had the same number of people working in the warehouse. We had the same number of trucks, the same number of truck drivers as we would to distribute our normal volume. But suddenly we're distributing a much larger volume of food and seeing many, many, many more people in our lines.
Drive-through food banks began in April, and we realized in a way we hadn't before just how close some are to not having enough money to buy food.
We lost. We lost big time. You know, what are you supposed to do, you know?
What folks did was help. Jean Shannon takes what she needs and gives the rest to others. Local companies donated. There were government grants and volunteers who wanted to help. The crisis brought out folks' character. And while grocery store shelves return to normal, the recovery for the food crisis is going to take a while.
We expect that the people who are relying on us for a greater share of their food needs than they did before, or relying on us for food for the first time, they're probably going to continue to need food from us for a long time. And I don't mean months. I think I mean probably years.
Helping Harvest with the pantries, homeless shelters, and soup kitchens will be here to help. Every little bit helps. Financial donations are the most helpful for the food bank. Their dollar goes further than ours. If you can, please consider a donation at helpingharvest.org. Berks Countyans know the meaning of teamwork. One group worked quickly and efficiently in a time of crisis to create a model others want to know more about. Drive-up deliveries, folks in cars all seeking the same thing in the early days of COVID-19, a way to stay safe. But how do you protect yourself if you don't have the right PPE? It's the acronym that worked its way into our everyday language, personal protective equipment. And if you didn't have enough of it in the beginning of the pandemic, it was almost impossible to get any more.
There were people in healthcare telling us we're cutting plastic liter soda bottles right now and trying to tape them to a headband because there was nothing available.
Albright College's Adele Shade remembers hearing from frontline workers.
They were scared. You could see it in them. You could read it in their emails when they would contact us. There was desperation. Nobody knew what to expect.
Frontliners were trying to save lives while knowing they were risking their own. Berks County desperately needed PPE, and fast. What happened here, based on that need, was nothing short of remarkable. Just before Adele learned about the shortage, Ellen Albright of the Greater Reading Chamber Alliance had gotten Adele and other Berks County leaders together in anticipation that they would be able to be helpful in some way. When they learned of the PPE issue, they had their purpose and almost immediately created the Berks PPE Resource Network. It was made up of local colleges and universities, nonprofits, and businesses. They began making face shields with 3D printers. They had essentially created a manufacturing unit within 3 weeks. More than 100 volunteers were making the shields inside the Goggle Works, schools, even their own homes. One family created an around-the-clock schedule, so their 3D printer was printing 24 hours a day. They had 93 printers operating from April until August.
We 3D printed little over 85,000 units. We dispersed them out to 255 organizations around Berks County.
All for free. Their hope was to fill the gap until businesses could retool and start making shields to sell.
I think what I've learned is how special Berks County is.
It's an example of what people are willing to do for each other, what we can accomplish when we work together. To learn more about the work Berks PPE Resource Network continues to do, check out berksPPEResourceNet.org. Walter Gensimer is a true definition of a hero, service to his country and service in his daily life. It is a reminder that people are inherently good in this world. The Gold Coast with its sunshine and adventure is alluring. And when it comes with a promise, it seems like a good choice to an 18-year-old kid from Reading in the late 60s. Just out of high school, Walter Gensimer met with recruiters from every branch of the military. They all promised he wouldn't go to Vietnam, and the Army guaranteed they'd send him to school with 3 years in California. But when he graduated from helicopter repair school in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, Walt got the news he was promised he would never get.
And I knew I wasn't going to Vietnam, and I'll never forget that. Private Walt Gensimer going to Vietnam. Must be another Walt Gensimer here. Private Walt Gensimer, you here? Yes, Sergeant. And that's how I got my orders for Vietnam then. Yeah, at first I thought that, okay, I'll go to Vietnam and repair helicopters there. I won't be in any action or anything like that. And that was wrong too, so.
The only time Walt saw California was on his 2 trips to Vietnam and back. A door gunner and crew chief who was afraid of heights, Walt was in the air 325 days out of the first 365, manning 2 M60 machine guns.
I'd see these guys on the line troops going through the jungle and everything, I mean, we were getting shot at too, but as far as I'm concerned, they had 100 times worse than we did,
The Hueys flew just over the treetops out in front of troops on the ground. Waltz was shot down 3 times. On one mission, shrapnel went through both of his legs, 1 Purple Heart, and 2 days later, he was back in the air. They were flying combat missions and saving lives. Again and again, flying into the gunfire, landing in the jungle, Walt would run out and bring wounded soldiers back with him.
You got a job to do, you got men dependent on you, and you just did what you had to do, I always said, I wasn't a hero, and I just did what I had to do, and I don't know if I ever really went above and beyond, but they said I did, but I don't think I did.
The men on board those Hueys are credited with rescuing more than 90,000 wounded in Vietnam. Walt spent 2 years there. He survived the horrors of war, but nothing prepared him for coming home.
When the war was dying down to us, I figured the protesters, weren't that bad. So. Mm-hmm. But there's one of those guys, one of them guys, that hurt. Sorry. Sorry. But yeah, that hurt, I was proud of him with some medals. I did what I had to do. I not personally take credit for saving lives, but I was involved with saving lives, and here I am thinking, I think I'm the scum of the earth. That hurts.
In the years since, Waltz continued to dedicate his life to service. He works with veterans struggling with addiction at the Berks County Veterans Treatment Court. He mentors veteran inmates at the Berks County Jail. He speaks at schools and community groups, sharing his experiences with PTSD. As a hospice volunteer, he's with veterans until their last breath. He chooses service over self every time, with no man ever left behind. Walter, it is an honor to know you and to share your story. 2020 was quite a year. Berks Countyans had to dig deep, pull themselves up, and come together like never before. Here are just a few of the folks who made a mark. When we needed them the most, they were there. Every day that folks at Tower Health Reading Hospital and Penn State Health St. Joe's come to work, they show us what they are made of. Heroes in halls, holding our loved ones' hands, showing us what courage and kindness look like. In the face of the unknown, they trudge forward. Don Hirsch and the hospital emergency team at St. Joe's are in the parking lot running testing sites. On the front lines with doctors and nurses, staff and crew are pharmacists. Marion Rhodes, Director of Pharmacy Services for St. Joe's, is making sure medications and vaccines to fight COVID-19 are in our hands. From the beginning, folks here have had our backs. The Director of Emergency Services for Berks County, Brian Gottschall, is saving lives with his thoughtful and careful organization of our healthcare providers, first responders, and county leaders. Realizing we're better together, heads of agencies like Anthony Tucci, Executive Director of Western Berks Ambulance, formed the Berks EMS COVID-19 Joint Task Force. On the team is Boyertown EMS Executive Director Jeffrey Knopf and Deputy Chief Brian Benoit. They never hesitate to respond. We worked and took care of our families. Berks County's largest employer, East Penn Manufacturing, needed to look out for more than 8,000 employees. Leading that charge with compassion and strength, Laurie Hagee, the Director of Medical Services, and Jennifer Yashur, Medical Services Supervisor. It's a whole new world in the workplace. They educated and trained thousands, and when vaccines became available, they were there to administer the shots. While work looked different and still does, our children were adjusting to life in a pandemic. Educators had to figure out how to keep our children safe. We have virtual classrooms and Zooming. Berks Nature provides a space for children to continue to learn and thrive. The Olivet Boys and Girls Club is a place to feel safe when the world around us seems to be spinning. President and CEO Christopher Winters ensures their life-saving programs keep running. When we wished for a day at the ballpark, but there was no baseball, Reading's Fightins answered the call. Anthony Pignetti, the team's Director of Business Development, put the focus on how they could help, opening the stadium, giving out pet food so our furry friends would have something to eat. There are drive-thrus of all kinds, shining a light on a dark time. Restaurant workers, grocery store clerks, small business owners, showing us what it means to be resilient, holding onto hope. Our extraordinary, everyday heroes. I feel like the lucky one because I have had a chance to spend some time with some of these amazing folks. Their stories are important, and it is an honor to work with the Red Cross to make sure these heroes know how much they mean to all of us. And during this time, the Red Cross has been there, providing help and hope.
I want to tell you a little bit about how the Red Cross has adapted to the COVID-19 environment to ensure safety for our clients and volunteers and staff, and also some of the ways that we've expanded our mission. We adopted new procedures so that we can deliver financial relief and casework virtually, and we have seen that our client satisfaction levels remain very high. Another big part of our programming is supporting community preparedness. Our Pillowcase Project and Pedro programs are home fire safety and disaster preparedness geared for first grade through fifth grade students. Typically, we deliver these in a classroom setting or in front of a Brownie troop or a Cub Scout troop, and we had to quickly adapt. So we had volunteers who learned to deliver the programs virtually. We're now providing those programs with the same level of quality in a different virtual environment. Another big part of our mission is the Red Cross as the largest collector and distributor of blood products across the United States. We were able very quickly to modify the setups for our drives, to increase distancing, to maintain good, safe social distancing, to have masking for our volunteers, and every donor has to complete a self-screening. A challenge is because so many businesses and schools are closed that we've had to cancel lots of drives. We're now holding drives twice a month at our Allentown chapter and at least once a month in our Reading chapter to make up the shortfall. I'm very happy to tell you that we have not had a single incident of COVID transmission from staff, volunteers, or donors at any of our Red Cross blood drives. There was an immediate huge spike in need for food banks and food pantry programs. So last summer, we started 2 programs, one at Second Harvest Food Bank and another at Middle Creek Community Center in Snyder County, to have Red Cross volunteers assist with packaging food and placing it in vehicles in a safe way. To date, our chapter has supplied over 500,000 boxed meals to residents in our 9 counties. We have also recently expanded that service to include the Hispanic Center of the Lehigh Valley in Bethlehem. The latest thing that we are starting to engage in is providing support for mass vaccination events. Again, this is outside of the normal scope of Red Cross, but it's something that the community needs, and it's something that our volunteers, with their general level of training around handling large groups of people safely and our ability to adapt and take on COVID-19 practices, makes us an ideal partner. All these are possible because of our volunteers and because of you, the generous people who've decided that the Red Cross mission is important to your community and that you see a need to continue providing the financial support that enables us to drive the Red Cross bus.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you for being with us as we honor our heroes from home. We are taking nominations for 2021 heroes to be recognized at our 2022 Heroes Breakfast. Please go to our Heroes website and nominate your hero. You'll find the nomination link at redcross.org/Berks Heroes. Thank you for your support of the Red Cross and these extraordinary everyday heroes.